Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hogue, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm AJ Hogue, the author of Effortless English, Learn to Speak English Like a Native, and the father of the Effortless English system that trains you to speak English fluently, speak English powerfully, speak English confidently, think in English, speak English effortlessly. When you commit to my VIP program, commit today, commit tomorrow, commit this year, commit this next year, commit. It's the magic word. Commit to my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Go there now to effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. We're live from Osaka. It's the Effortless English Show. Live show, live on Facebook right now. Of course, we are continuing with our book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Today, habit number 5. As you know, this habit is another social habit, meaning we're talking about other people now, dealing with other people. Specifically today, this is a communication habit. It's about having great communication. How do you communicate with other people, connect with them? But really, how do you have good communication with other people? This is a very common problem in all human relationships, right? You need good communication in a marriage, in dating. You need good communication with friends. You need good communication with your children. You need good communication in your work, your business, right? All areas of life. If you're working with other people, communicate, right? That's how we make relationships with other people, is through communication. So today's habit, skill, technique is about that. It's about great communication. It's a really good one. It's one that I try to use in my life. Sometimes I'll forget about it, and then reading it again, I'll remember, oh yeah, this is great. I really should practice this more, because it really does work. I have used this habit in my own life in many situations, and it does work. It is effective, I promise you. Now, lots of people saying hi, as usual, from many countries, so let's do our usual thing. I'll read the countries. Let me get some water first. Yummy water. Okay, lots of people saying hello from many countries. We've got the Ukraine. We've got Russia, Egypt, France, little French flag, Lebanon, Lithuania, Thailand, Hungary, Lebanon, Cambodia, Algeria. As you can see, Effortless English is everywhere. Thailand again, Lithuania again, Jakarta, Indonesia, Iraq, Lima. That's Peru, I guess. Malaysia, India. Lots and lots of places, of course. Kosovo, fantastic. Palestine, Kurdistan, etc. Great. Welcome, Armenia, Tunisia, Italia, Turkey, Egypt, great. And Brazil and Vietnam. And Malaysia and Egypt again. Well, welcome everybody. And all the other countries too. Let's get started. Let's move forward, because it's always good to not waste time. Moving on. So, habit number 5. First of all, habit 5, here's the habit. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek means, try. In this sentence, it means try. Try first to understand, then to be understood. So it's the order that's important here with this. Okay, what's the writer's telling us, Stephen Covey, it's the order. It's which one do you do first and which one do you do second. And in communication, when you are communicating with people, he's saying that first you should try to understand them before you try to be understood, right? Before you talk and before you explain, before you try to persuade, whatever you're trying to do for yourself. Before you do that, first try to understand them, the other person. That's the first thing you do. So it's important the order you do this. If you do it in the wrong order, if you try to first explain and then understand, it doesn't work very well. So this is important. This is the order. Okay. Next page, another title for the chapter is Principles of Empathic Communication. Some big words. Principles means big main ideas. Empathic, there's a nice word in English. Empathic also comes from the word empathy. Empathy is the noun. Empathy. What is empathy? Empathy. Empathic is an adjective. So empathy is the noun. What is empathy? Empathy is the ability to understand another person's, right? Not you, but another person's feelings. So it's focused on emotion and feelings. So specifically that you can understand their feelings. So for example, if you have empathy, if your friend is sad and they're crying, you can understand it. You almost feel it yourself, right? You can feel their sadness a little bit yourself. You have empathy, the ability to feel someone else's emotions. Now, some people don't have this, and usually they're not very nice people, like psychopaths, people who, serial killers, right? Murderers, some of them, not all of them, but some of them have no empathy. That's why they don't care about other people's feelings at all. They don't care about other people's feelings. They don't understand other people's feelings. They cannot feel for someone else. They have no empathy. So those are usually pretty bad people, because they don't care about someone else's feelings. They can be very mean. They can be very cruel. So that's empathy. And of course, most humans have empathy. Most of us. I think some animals too. Like I think some dogs may have it a little bit, and I don't know. But I think some animals might, but definitely most people have empathy, the ability to feel someone else's feelings. And this is part of having a good cooperation, right? This helps us to have good connection. So empathic is just the adjective. It means with empathy. So what this whole thing is about, this chapter, empathic communication means communication with empathy, communication with emotional understanding. It means when you communicate with someone else, you understand their emotions. You feel their emotions. That's the kind of communication that is most effective. That's what he's saying. So empathic communication, right? Because we have other kinds of communication. You can have just logical communication, which we sometimes call dialectic. There's another English word, dialectic communication. It's just information only. There's no emotion, right? So I can say, right now it's 6:18 p.m. in Japan. There's really no emotion in that communication. It's just information only. It's not empathic, right? Because it's not necessary. It's just pure information, or maybe sometimes you might have pure logic, right? It's some kinds of scientific communication. Ideally, there's no emotion in it at all. Okay, but what we're talking about today in this chapter is human communication. So we're talking about for relationships, specifically for relationships, good relationships. And for that, Absolutely, emotion is super important. In fact, it's probably more important than logic. It's more important than information. Because the truth is, most people are affected by emotion more than logic, more than information. That is the truth. That's true for persuasion. It's true for long relationships like friendships and marriages. It's the emotional part that is really the most important. It's not the only thing that's important, but it's number one. I agree with him about that. All right, then he tells a little story. And he talks about the problem first. He says, what's the problem? What's the problem with communication? Most people, think any communication, your friend, your parents, anybody, anytime you have a difficult communication with somebody. He says, usually, often, what happens is that first, the person, maybe it's you, first, you try to give advice. You try to explain. You try to solve the problem. Right? You do this before you diagnose. Now, we all do this. I've done this. I do this too. When I'm not patient, when I'm distracted. Sometimes I get in a bad habit and I do it a lot. So this is kind of normal, but it's not good. It's not the best. So he gives this word diagnose. Diagnose. Another good English word. Diagnose. It has a connection to doctors. Doctors and sickness. To diagnose, it's a verb. To diagnose means first identify the problem. That's what it means. Identify the problem. So if you're a doctor, someone comes and they said, I have a headache. I've got a headache. Right? I've got a headache. So a good doctor, a bad doctor will say, here's aspirin. They'll just give you medicine. They won't ask any questions. That's a bad doctor. They're not diagnosing, right? They're not identifying. They're not finding the true problem, right? Because headache, there could be many, many reasons for a headache. Maybe you're tired. You didn't get enough sleep. Maybe your diet is bad. You eat really badly. Maybe not enough water. Or maybe you have a migraine headache. It's a specific kind of headache. Maybe someone hits you in the head with a rock, right? There's many reasons, many ways to have a headache. And each cause, each diagnosis, that's the noun, would have a different solution, right? If someone hits you on the head or you fell and you hit your head, well, maybe you need something different than if you didn't drink enough water, right? If you didn't drink enough water, then you're dehydrated. You need water. If you get hit in the head, maybe you have a concussion. You have a different solution. So what he's saying, it's like this. That's what diagnose. He says, if you're the best communication, when you have a communication, especially with a problem, a difficult communication, first you must identify the problem. Don't give advice. Don't explain your point of view. Don't explain anything because you don't really know the true situation yet. So you must first understand the situation. Diagnose first, then the solution. And that's good advice. That's good advice in general in life, in all things in life. For most problems, first we need to diagnose the problem. I mean, what is really the problem? Too many times people try to give advice or take action, but they don't really understand the problem first. And this makes the situation worse. So that's why he says the rule, seek first to understand, then after to be understood. Okay, so now he's talking about influence. Next, he talks about character in communication. So we're talking about communication. And he's talking about kind of the steps, the levels of communication. What's most important? What's next? What's next? So number one, the most important thing is your character. This is a general idea of this book. Who you really are inside. your virtue, your goodness. That's most important. That's number one for sure. That will help your relationships most of all, right? Being a really, really good person, good character, good virtue, strength and courage and honesty, all those good virtues. Wisdom. So that's the most important, because for of course, for short relationships, maybe not, but for long relationships, that's most important. So for example, in a marriage, that's number one. That's number one for sure, right? If both the husband and the wife are very virtuous, very good people, really good character, probably the relationship will work. Even if the communication techniques are not so good sometimes, even if sometimes you're tired and sometimes there are problems, if the character of both people is really, really, really good, that's most important of all. Absolutely, for sure. And that's true for friendships, that's true for business, that's true for everything. So good point. He's right about that. So always, always, always don't forget who you are inside, developing that strong, good character, those virtues that we have talked about, courage and, persistence and wisdom and morality, all those good things. Okay, so that's number one. That's the foundation, of course. What comes next? What's number two? Number two is this habit, this chapter. Number two is empathic listening. He calls it empathic listening. Listening for emotion. Emotional listening. Seek first to understand. And he says, how do you do this? How do you really understand somebody else? How do you do that, really? Think about it. I mean, it seems simple, but really, as you know, especially if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or if you have a husband or a wife, or if you did in the past, then it's not always so easy. It's not as simple as we might think, right? Because even though you might care for each other, you love each other, but still you argue. Lots of people have relationships and they're constantly arguing and fighting, and you don't understand me and I don't understand you, and right? Why? Well, he's saying, this is a good way to solve that problem. Empathic listening. It's because you're listening, but you're not listening in the right way. You have to listen in order to understand. You have to try to listen in a specific way so you understand them, and especially so you understand their emotion, not just the information. Now, I will say this. For men, especially, you need to do this, because with women, in my experience, the emotional part is probably the most important part. Sometimes we forget that. I forget it sometimes. Because a lot of times men, we will focus on more of the information and the content, the logic. That's how we think more sometimes. Not always, but often we will. And so we'll focus on that part of the message, that part of the communication, and we won't really focus on the emotional part so much. But especially with women, but really even with men too, you have to also understand the emotional part. Very important. And it's especially important for persuasion and any kind of close communication. Very important. Okay. And the other part about this is he says, diagnose before you prescribe. So again, it's another chapter that really the main idea is very simple, and he kind of repeats the main idea in many ways. He tells lots of different stories, and he says it in different ways, but really the main idea, diagnose before you subscribe. So it means completely understand the person, completely understand their emotions, then give your advice, or then explain. But you have to wait. Wait to explain. Don't do it first. And then he says, he gives just examples of who needs this. Well, so you need this in your relationship. If salespeople need this, right? If you're trying to sell something, well, you need to understand the customer first. You don't just start selling immediately. You don't just say, buy this, buy this, buy this. You have to understand, what do they want? What do they need? What are their problems? What are their frustrations? What emotions do they have? Then you try to sell after you understand them completely. He says it's important for lawyers. It's important for doctors. It's important for designers. It's important for engineers. It's important in your personal life. So basically, all communication, okay? All relationships, it's important. Okay, next. I'm skipping past the stories because it's just kind of the same ideas. All right, let's talk about exactly how to do this. We have the exact how to do this. There's even almost like a little formula, how to do this, right? Because sometimes we have these ideas, these principles, and we're like, well, how do I do this actually? And it's really, 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 really simple. And I will say, by the way, my first training degree was counseling, social work specifically. But I used to do this. I would counsel, help counsel people who had problems. I worked with teenagers for a while, and then later I worked with, people who had drug problems and other things. Anyway, the point. This technique right here is probably the number one technique of counselors. That includes psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, whatever. This basic technique is probably 80% of what they do. They spend, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years of study. But really, I can teach it to you in about 5 minutes. So here it is. Stephen Covey's teaching us right now. Here it is. Okay, he says there are different levels of listening. Different levels. So level 1 is, it's called reflective listening. That's where you just say what they said. So someone says, oh man, I had a busy day today. And you listen and then you repeat what they said. Oh, you had a busy day today. Okay, that's level 1, technique 1. That's kind of so-so. It's a little annoying if you do it too much, right? It's okay to do it. Sometimes you might do that, but if you constantly do it, the other person's going, why are you repeating everything I say? It's a little annoying. Okay, it's a little obvious. I'm going to skip ahead to the level 3, the most important one. This is the one you should try. This is the one you should use when you listen. This is the most effective one. You rephrase, means you say again what they said and also their emotion. This is the important part. The content means the information and the emotion. You repeat back, in other words, you summarize. You summarize what they said. But the important part is you have to do both the information and emotion, both. Information and emotion, both. Now, sometimes you have to guess, okay? Sometimes you have to guess the emotion. That's okay. If you're wrong, it's still okay, all right? The important part is you're saying back to them the information that they said and also the emotion that they are feeling. And you have to guess that sometimes. So I'll give you an example. Again, they say, let's say it's your friend. Your friend says, oh man, it's really busy today. Okay, so you're listening. You're using this method. This is a technique, really. This is a very specific technique. Really busy today. What should you do? Using this technique. Number 1, repeat the information. They're busy. But number 2, what about the emotion? They did not say their emotion, but if you hear in their voice, you look at their face, what emotion? Well, maybe they look kind of tired, right? They kind of look, really busy today. So you guess, you say, You say, oh, yeah, wow. So you're busy today. You look kind of tired. You seem like you're tired. That's it. Really easy, right? You repeat the information. Oh, yeah. So you're busy today. Just repeat what they said, basically. And then the important part, you describe their emotion. And you look really tired. You must be tired. You can say it many different ways, okay? But the important part, say the information back to them, summarize it, repeat it. And number 2, guess their emotion. It's really simple, right? It seems simple. Really, 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 really simple, easy technique. But in fact, when you try it, I promise you, it is very, very, very effective. Now, what will they do after this? Okay, because kind of guess, imagine. Well, really, usually it's 2 possible things. Number 1, they agree with you. Yeah, I'm really tired. And then they'll keep talking. Usually they'll continue to talk because they feel you're listening. So they're going to share more information usually. Yeah, I'm really tired. My boss was bothering me all day today. That's one possible thing. Or they will disagree. Maybe you were wrong. Maybe you guessed wrong. You might guess wrong. It happens. So maybe they say, no, I'm not tired. I'm just actually kind of angry. I'm kind of frustrated. Or I'm stressed. Right? So they'll disagree and then they'll tell you the actual answer. So again, that's also good because now you understand their emotion better. You guessed, you must be tired. And they say, no, actually, I'm feeling stressed. So now you say, okay, you're feeling stressed. I see. Just repeat back their emotion again. I know it seems simple, but when you do this as a habit, you will be amazed. You will be amazed. People will just start talking and talking and talking to you because most people don't do this. Most people don't listen, and most people certainly don't listen to emotions. So people kind of stop talking. When you do this, you will, as you get better at this and you can make a habit, other people will start to share more and more and more information. They'll just keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Sometimes too much. But the good part about this is you learn a lot. You will learn a lot about them. You will start to understand them a lot more because they will share more and more and more information. They'll share more and more and more about their emotion also. So you really will begin to understand them much better. You'll understand their situation, what they want, what they need, their problems, all of that you'll understand more and more and more deeply. This is powerful. Now, why is it powerful? Well, a couple of reasons. Well, number 1, it's powerful because, as we say, knowledge is power. Information is power. It means you're learning a lot about them. That's power. Now, not power to do something bad, but power to help them, power to communicate better, power to have a better relationship. When you really understand them better, well, now your communication will become much better. So, for example, if you're a salesperson, well, if you understand the customer really well, you understand their emotions, you understand their problems, you understand their situation. Well, now when it's time to sell, when it's your time to speak, you will know what to say because you understand them very well. So your selling will be much more effective, much more powerful. Also, in your family life, when you really understand your wife, for example, or your husband, you understand their emotions, their problems, all this, how they think, well, then your communication, what you say to them, will be more effective. It'll be better. Overall, your relationship will just be better. You won't fight so much. The fighting will go down, down, down. You really won't fight and argue so much. It'll become much, much, much less, which makes for a much happier relationship generally, especially when both people do this. But even when just one person does it, it's quite nice. It really is effective. It's good for friendships, all of this. Now, the other reason this is so effective is trust. Trust. Remember last week we talked about the emotional bank account? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, right? This idea of trust, the idea of kind of like a bank account, right? As you have good experiences in relationships, it's like you're adding trust. The trust goes up, 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 and then the relationship gets better, better, better. So it's the same idea. The other person feels more trust. They trust you more. The more you try to understand them, the more you understand their feelings and how they think and all this. And, also their character. As you understand all of this more and more and more and more, they trust you more. And, of course, you trust them more too. So this creates just stronger and stronger and stronger relationships. And when this happens over many months or years, it can create a very, very, very strong relationship. So it is very powerful. Very, 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 very powerful. Next, he gives an example of parenting, that parents need to do this, especially with older children. That also parents have the same problem, kind of a bad habit, where parents, they explain and they criticize first instead of listening first, right? So maybe their kid, let's say child has a bad test at school. They're going to school, they get a bad grade, right? They fail a test. So they come home, oh, Dad, I failed the test. And so what happens? Usually, right, the habit, what most people want to do is immediately start criticizing or explaining or, what? Oh, I can't believe you got a bad grade. Why didn't you study? Da, 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 right? Kind of accusing and asking these questions. But these questions are not about emotion. And so then the child gets upset, and then it just becomes a big fight. So he's saying a better way is to use this technique and say, and just to kind of, you might say, well, you failed your test, and you say, oh, it looks like you're upset about that, right? You don't give your opinion yet. Again, it's the same idea. No opinion, no explanation from you. You just first try to understand. So you just, again, this thing is you repeat, you summarize, you say the information, and you guess the emotion. What's the information? They failed the test. So, you failed your test. You failed your history test. And then you look at their emotion. Do they look upset? Maybe they don't look upset. Maybe they don't care at all. So same thing, you would say, well, you failed your history test, but you don't look upset. And then just shut up. This is the hard part. The next part is don't say anything. Just wait. Just wait for them to talk. So you just silent and look at them. And they're going to say something more, usually. If they don't, you can ask questions. But usually they're going to say, yeah, well, I don't know. It's not that important. I still have a good, my grade in history is still good. So it's no big deal. This is a small quiz. Okay, well, now, great. You just learned some good information. It's actually not that important. No need to get so upset because the grade is still good overall. So see, aren't you glad you waited and found more information? So you say, oh, okay, so this was just a small quiz, so that's why you're not that upset. Yeah, Dad, that's right. That's what I just said, right? It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. And say, okay, well, right? And you just wait. And how long do you do this? That's the next question, right? You just keep doing this. But eventually you do want to talk, especially if you're a parent. So the next question is how long to use this technique until you talk. And that's the next section. Then seek to be understood. Right? So the second part is, so you understand them. And then the next part, of course, eventually you do want to talk. Eventually you want to say your information, your opinion. Maybe sometimes it's advice, especially if you're a parent. So when do you do that? How long do you wait? The basic idea, the basic rule is wait until their emotion is very relaxed and calm. They're not emotional anymore. They seem very relaxed and open and calm. So if you start your conversation and they look, just unfriendly, then you need to ask questions and repeat their emotions and keep going. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour. Doesn't matter. You just keep going until they really become open. They're talking very openly, very freely. And you'll just see with their emotions, you'll notice they start smiling more. They seem relaxed. They're not like they're frustrated. They're not stressed. They're not angry. They're not really so sad. Whatever the emotion, right? Or even excited, right? You let them get the excitement out too. Sometimes people want to talk about good things and they're excited. Well, let them get the excitement out. Don't start saying a lot of stuff. Say, oh yeah, wow, that's great. So you had a great success. You look excited. I'm so excited. Wow, you seem really happy. That's great. Yeah, I'm so happy. Let them share that too. So as the emotion calms down, when the emotion calms down, then it's time. Now, a very good sign, is they ask you a question. If it's a good relationship, they will ask you a question. They'll say, what do you think? Or they'll ask for your advice. What should I do? Dad, what should I do? What do you think I should do? And that's the best situation. They ask you for advice, or they ask your opinion, or they just ask you a question about your life. That's nice. Some people won't do this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's the best situation. They finally get out everything. They feel good. You understand them, and now they want to know your opinion. Right now, not in the beginning, but after. They feel like, wow, you really understand them. So now they're ready to hear your opinion. They're ready to hear your advice. So if they ask advice, then of course tell them what you think. If they ask you a question, of course answer it. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes, a lot of people, Americans especially, I will say, unfortunately, will just talk endlessly. It's kind of I'd say it's kind of a negative thing about Americans that I don't particularly like, but a lot of Americans are that way. So sometimes with some people, you do have to just jump in and start talking eventually. Sometimes you want to say your ideas and opinion or whatever. That's fine, and it's fine to jump in. It's even fine to interrupt sometimes. But when do you do it? You have to wait until their emotion becomes calm. Wait until they have talked enough, that you really understand their emotion. You really understand the situation. Their emotion is calmer now. They've calmed down. It's a nice, calm emotion, more relaxed. Then you share. Then you give your opinion, and then you start talking. Then you need to be understood. And also, if you're selling or if you're arguing or you're trying to persuade, right? You want them to do something, you want to change their mind. Well, again, that's fine, but you do it. It's the second step, not the first. Don't just start immediately trying to sell. Don't start immediately trying to persuade. That's true in a speech. It's true in a conversation. Don't do it. You got to really, 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 really understand them first. Then you share your persuasion, your ideas, all of that. Okay, so got it. That's important. Okay. So it's time now. You did it. You use that technique. You use it many, many, many times, as long as necessary. And now it's time to persuade them. It's time to share your opinion. What to do, how to do it. This is a big topic, okay? This is a topic for a whole book, okay? Persuasion, rhetoric, okay? Big books have been written about this topic. So I'm only going to give you the really short answer for this from our book today. So here it is from our book. He talks about the Greeks. He says, when it's your turn to talk, it's finally your time, you should focus on ethos, pathos, and logos. This is Greek philosophy, very old Greek philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy. And I believe this goes back to Aristotle, probably others too, but Aristotle's writing about rhetoric, he talks about these three: ethos, pathos, logos. These are Greek words, so you don't need to learn them. They're not English. So I'll give you the English version, okay? Ethos would be basically morality, character again, virtue. Right? It's connected to the word ethics or ethical, same root, right? So it's talking about, again, your goodness, your morality, your virtue, your character. That's most important. Again, at the deepest level, long term, not in the short term, but long term, over months and over years, that's most important of all. If you are a good person, if everybody trusts you and loves you, well, your speaking will be effective. You will be persuasive. They will listen to you just because they trust you and care about you and love you and, respect you. So that's why it's number one. It's definitely most important. Number two, pathos is emotion. It's about emotion, feeling. It's the second most important, and he's correct about this. The third one is logic. Logos means logic, information, logic. It's the last one. You do need, yes, it's necessary. It's necessary, of course, but it's the bottom. For persuasion especially, most people are not persuaded by logic, by information. Okay, this is why debating facts, it's a terrible way to persuade people. A lot of people do it. A lot of people in arguments, they're constantly focusing on the facts and the information, and nothing happens. They don't change anything. I see this with persuasion. I even see it with selling sometimes, where people will focus too much on the information, the logos, the logic, and it's not effective. They get frustrated because they think in their mind, well, obviously what I'm saying is true, right? What I'm saying is logical. It's a good argument. It's true. But other people are not listening to me. Why not? It's because they don't have the pathos. They don't have the emotion. And another way to say it, emotional communication is rhetoric. Rhetoric is emotional communication. It's emotional persuasion, okay? Some people don't like this. Some people are very logical. Engineers, I find, are like this a lot. Computer science people, engineers, they're very logical. And they just really don't like this idea that emotion is more important in communication. But that's human nature, and it's just the truth. It works. So it's your character is most important long term, of course. Second most important with your communication is emotion. You have to communicate emotionally. You must understand how to do that. That's for a different book, okay? It's a big skill, but it is certainly number two. And then finally, number three, you need to give logical arguments or explanations or good information. That is important, but it's the bottom. It's number three. Okay, then. Moving on. I think we're almost done. All right, that is it. That's the chapter. Time for your comments and questions. Of course, I'd like to hear your ideas about this. Before we do that, I want to give you a little bit of a homework assignment. Ooh, this week you get homework. Oh no, just like evil school. I really want you to do this. Try this. I'm going to do it too. My wife, who's in the next room, Tomoe-chan, I'm going to use this technique with you this week. All right? What I'm teaching today, I'm going to try it with you. Okay. All right. So I just told my wife I'm going to do it with her too. So I want you to do this in your life because this really is a very, very practical, simple. I like it because it's so simple. It's a super simple skill, a very, very simple technique, almost a formula. It's so simple. So it's very, very, very easy to do. And it is very, very powerful. It is very powerful. As I said, I got paid in my old job before English. I got paid a salary mostly to do this one technique. Most of my counseling when I was working those jobs with in hospitals and with teenage kids who had trouble, other people who had problems. Like I said, 80% I was just doing this technique constantly. And then later I'd give some advice. But most of the time, I was just using this technique again and again and again, and it is powerful. It's quite amazing. I've used this with my closest friends, and that has really improved my relationship with those friends. I've used it with family members. It has really helped with my family. Reading this chapter this week, I realized I need to do this more with my wife. Sometimes I kind of forget to do this, so I'm going to use this with my wife this week. And other people too. Whoever. So I want you to try this technique, this empathic listening technique. I want you to try this with everybody, every single conversation you have. So do it with your wife or your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. Do it with your friends. Do it at work. Do it at school. Anytime you talk to another person, use it. Okay, this kind of massive, meaning big action, right? Doing it every single conversation. Every conversation in your life for this whole week, this next week. You'll start to, first you'll learn how to do it. In the beginning, it feels a little weird. Sometimes it feels strange to do it. You have to use your own words so you're comfortable. And maybe you need a little time to do that. So you have to practice a little bit, but not much. In a few days, this should be quite easy for you. And then I want you to see the power of this. I really want you to see the effect. I want you to see how this helps your relationships get better. How other people will talk more, be more open with you, feel closer to you, trust you more, and eventually listen to you more too. Okay, so just try the first part of this week. So again, what do? You listen to them, let them say something, then repeat, summarize information and emotion. That's the important part, not just information only, right? Just what we said, information's not enough. You have to have the emotion too. So repeat back to them what they said, information, and guess their emotion. What they said, the information, and guess their feelings, their emotion. Then be quiet and let them talk more. Then, again, same thing. The next sentence, exactly the same again. Information and emotion. Repeat it back to them. Repeat it back to them. Repeat it back to them. One final thing. Sometimes someone might, especially someone who knows you, they might realize that you're doing something different. So they might say, "What are you doing? You keep repeating back what I'm saying." And so don't be upset by it. Just tell them the truth. Say, actually, I was reading a book about listening, and I'm trying to be a better listener. I'm trying to be sure that I understand you better when you speak, so that I really, so I'm repeating back to you just to confirm, right? To confirm, just to check that, do I really understand what you're saying? Did I hear correctly? And do I understand your feeling? Do I really understand correctly what you're saying and how you feel? And say, so it's just a little technique I'm trying. I'm not trying to annoy you. I'm not trying to joke about this. I'm really just trying to be a better listener because I care about our relationship. I think most people will be happy to hear that, so that it won't be a problem. Some people might say, well, it's weird. You say, okay, yeah, I know it's a little weird, but, and you can stop. If it's bothering them, you can stop. But a lot of people won't notice. In the beginning, people might notice because it feels strange, but with time, with practice, you learn how to do this, so it's not obvious. People won't even notice you're doing it. Okay, let's go now to our comments and questions, our live listeners and viewers. Viewers, because we're video. The drink of water for me first. All right, let's see what you have to say. Okay, first a comment. I knew someone would comment about my hat. Abdurrahmane says, good morning, Mr. AJ. Apparently it's cold around you. Make sure to bundle up. I'm wearing, if you're listening just the audio, I'm wearing a nice little warm hat. Yes, it's winter. It's a cold day. I got a haircut, so my hair is really short now. And because of that, my head's cold. So I'm wearing a hat. Thank you. Staying warm. All right. From Van Tatran, and I can't do the accent, sorry. Long time no see, AJ. How are you? Your accent is very good. It's easy to hear. Well, thank you. That's very nice. Well, here's an interesting question. Dalal. Should I use these techniques with all people or only people I care with or care about? That is up to you, your choice. I recommend, at least this week, everybody. Everybody. Now, not like at a restaurant with a waiter, okay? Because that's not a conversation. So only for conversations, right? If someone just says, what do you want to eat? Because they're the waiter at a restaurant, of course, don't start, how do you feel? Looks like you feel hungry. Don't do that, right? But any conversation, right? More than a few sentences where you're actually just chatting with somebody. Try it. Yeah. Everybody. Even strangers. If you're just chatting with a stranger. In fact, if you use this with strangers, it's a good way to connect with new people because they'll start to feel very comfortable with you quickly. This happens to me. Now, I've used this, and believe me, this is one of my little superpowers in life, honestly. And I learned this technique again because I did this for my job for many years, and I don't know why, but I do know why. It's because I use this technique. It's very natural for me, and I don't know, lots and lots of people when I talk to them, they will just talk and talk and talk and talk, and they will share lots of information. And mostly I just kind of very quiet listening. Okay. Even with some of my family members, this is true. Vladislav. I had a great trip to Prague. Now I'm watching you in the airport waiting for my flight home. Oh, that's nice. Have a good flight, Vladislav. And I'm glad you enjoyed Prague. I've heard Prague's a beautiful city. Okay, Zuzlina says, I've been thinking this is a good method. Then I realized I do this automatically. Maybe it's my high sensitivity and empathy. Yeah, some people do this kind of naturally, honestly. People who are really good listeners, they do naturally do this. People who, again, like empathy, there's that word again we're learning today. Some people are very empathic. That's the adjective to describe a person. Some people are very empathic, just naturally, it's their personality, I don't know, genetically, something. But they just are very, very, very empathic. They really feel other people's emotions very easily. They're very sensitive. And so people like that, yes, they often will use this technique just naturally, just automatically. They never learn it. They just kind of know to do it. But other people are not. Some people are, everybody is, all good, normal, natural people have some empathy. We all do. The people with none are serial killers, okay? They're dangerous. But it's kind of, some have more, some have less. Some of us are less emotional, less empathic, and some of us are more. And so some people do need to actually learn this technique. And sometimes, even if you're empathic, sometimes we're focused on ourselves a lot, right? So even if you have empathy, it's easy you focus a lot on yourself. You have problems, you're thinking about things, and you kind of forget about this. So it's just a good reminder, this technique, that, I need to use this. It's a good little technique to use when you want to have a good conversation, a good relationship. Now later, you don't always have to use this every conversation your whole life. Of course not. I just want you to do it this week, just 1 week of practice to do it. Because it's a good way to practice, is just to constantly do it with everybody. You make it a habit. Then later you decide, when to do it and when not. Okay. This is a good point from Alexander Marusic. I think one of the most important things is to understand what your friend really needs, or colleague. Colleague is like someone you work with. There might be a time when advice isn't important. True. And it'd be better if you just near him or her. That is exactly true, Alexander. Good point. Excellent. That's right. Sometimes you don't need to do the second step. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes all you need to do is just listen and understand them. That's it. They'll be very happy if you do that. Hey, this is especially true when the other person is having some, big problem, maybe something very emotional, very difficult. Sometimes you don't need advice. Sometimes there is no advice. I'll give an example is, let's say somebody has someone near them. Let's say, I don't know, your best friend, they break up, right? They have a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend. Well, sometimes there's nothing you can say. They're just really upset. They feel sad. You don't really know what to say. You don't know what to tell them. There's really nothing can be done. So you just listen to them. You just listen to them and use this technique and let them talk and talk and talk. And you know what happens usually? After a while, they'll say, "Thanks for listening. I feel better." Just listening. Sometimes people just need to share how they feel and what they think. And they will be very, very happy that you just listen to them. Of course, you know this because you feel this too, right? Sometimes in your life, you have some hard time in life. You don't want advice. You don't want advice. You don't want to hear advice. You don't want to hear anything. You just want to talk and share how you feel. And after you do that, you feel really good if someone listens to you. Again, before my other job, my early life job when I was young, many times that's all I did. Many, many times as a counselor. So I had no advice at all. I would just let them talk and talk and talk and share everything and try to understand. And that still helped. So that is correct. I think a good rule, and often in my life, I don't like to give advice to people, especially people I don't know well, unless they ask. So many times I will not give advice unless someone asks me. They have to directly ask me, "What do you think I should do?" Otherwise, I will just do this technique and not really say anything about my opinion. Okay, Bari is with the big question, which, again, requires probably a whole book, more than one book. Bari says, how to make a good relationship with the girl and make her trust, because I always fail. Well, it's a hard question, There's a lot of things. There's a yin and yang for this. Yin and yang comes from Chinese, from Taoism. Another way to say this, there's a hard and a soft. And you need both as a man, okay? I'm talking about as a man. Now, for women, I can't give you advice because I'm not a woman and I don't really understand from your point of view, okay? But for a man, I will tell you this. There's a hard and a soft to this. And you have to have both. Now, the soft is what we're talking about now. But this is useful after you have a good relationship. You're in a relationship, okay? You have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, you're married. This skill in this chapter is very important, for sure. But it's not so important in the beginning when you're just first trying to date a girl or woman. It's less important. I think the hard skills are more important. Now, what do I mean by hard skills? Things like confidence, strong, confident communication, confident body language. I mean, that's probably the number one word I would say is confidence. You got to be most women want strong, confident guys. And, I didn't realize this when I was young. When I was young, I was really good at the soft. Again, my job was a counselor. I was really good at this listening stuff. Very good at it. But I didn't have the hard skills. I didn't have that strong, that confidence in myself, deep inside, that strength. Again, those virtues that we talked about, there's soft ones and hard ones, and you need both. You absolutely have to have both in life for all areas of life. And again, as a man, for sure, if you only have the soft, you only have good listening, you only have understanding, probably in life, you will have a lot of problems with women and girls. I did when I was younger. I had a lot of problems because I only had the soft skills. I was really good at listening and understanding feelings, but I did not get respect from women. I did not get respect from girls because I was too soft. Too soft, you become feminine, right? You become a little bit too much like a woman, and then there's no attraction. Or at least there's not enough attraction. There's not enough respect. So it's a bit of a hard balance for a man, a little difficult from a man's point of view to get both. In general, the strong is probably the most important. That strength, that confidence, and not just pretending. It has to be real, like really deep inside you. Again, we're talking about character. We're talking about virtue. We're talking about who you are really deep inside in your heart. That takes time to develop. Okay, and that's why this is a big topic. Maybe we'll talk about it another time. I'm just giving you the very short answer. So you absolutely, as a man, you must have that and develop that inside of you as really who you are. And then you add to that, you add this listening skill, this understanding ability as kind of it's a complement. It helps. It adds a little bit of softness to that strength. And when you get both of those together, that's the magic formula, right? For a man, I'd say that the strength and the power, whatever word, confidence has to be the higher one, the bigger one. I didn't understand this. Again, no one told me this. My dad did not teach me this. No other men taught me this. My mom, growing up, is the one who was constantly teaching me to kind of be understanding and soft, which was fine, but it was bad advice. Okay? It was because she didn't know. She's a woman. How could she know? So anyway, I feel for you. The reason I'm answering this question is I know it's painful. especially for young men. It's painful when you don't understand, like, I'm trying, I'm a good person. I really try to understand her and understand women. I'm such a good person, but they don't respect me. Right? They break up with me. They cheat on me. They ignore me. It's really painful for a young man. Very painful. So I feel that pain. I know it. Because I had the same experience when I was younger, so I do understand you. There's a book called The Rational Male. The Rational Male. If you want some more about this topic, young men out there, even older men, The Rational Male. Very good book. It's actually 3 books, but get those. All right, keep on going. Okay. Minvotron says, we stopped fighting, but someone is brave to start a conversation again, just uses the right words, not arguing. Because both know this method. Is it good? I just experienced last night. Yeah, right. Okay, so right. You can use this at any time. So sometimes with an argument, right? You're having an argument with someone, and then the emotion comes up and both people are angry and you're upset and you forget to use this technique, right? Or you don't want to because you're too frustrated, you're too angry, you're too upset. That happens, of course, but it's okay. You can use it anytime. So maybe finally after some time, you realize, this is crazy, right? You start to calm a little bit, or you realize this argument, nothing's happening. We're just fighting and this is not good. It's like a circle, right? You just keep fighting. And then finally, maybe in your mind, you realize, I need to do something different. So yes, even in the middle of a fight, you can change and start using this technique. And if you keep using it, it's a good way to stop a fight. You can break that fight, meaning in a good way, meaning you break the anger, because instead of adding to the fight, you will start to calm it down. When you stop adding your anger, when you stop adding your emotion, and instead you start trying to understand and start listening, you become calmer. The other person eventually, maybe not, it takes some time maybe, but eventually the other person might start to calm down. And like you're saying, if both of you know this technique, that's even better, because then maybe the other person calms down and then they'll start using the technique. And then you both, the emotion will start to calm down and everything gets better. Or sometimes if you both know the technique and you really try to use it, you have good virtue, right? You good character. Then sometimes one of you will calm down first and use it. And sometimes the other person will calm down first and use it. That's good. You can help each other this way. And then eventually, hopefully, you get in a habit where you just stop fighting so much. Where you develop the long-term virtue, the long-term character of patience, of being calmer, of trying to understand, all of those things. So yes, you can use it in the middle of an argument. It's probably a good time to use it. Okay. Okay, let me just move forward a little bit. Okay, good evening. Okay, from Rafiqul Islam. Good evening, my great coach. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. Correct. Most people do not do this. This is true. They listen with the intent to reply. Yes. That's why sometimes we don't find conformity in a conversation and we create misunderstandings. That is exactly right. That's a good way to say it. Most people, they're listening, but they're just waiting to jump, right? You know this. Most people, it's frustrating. I'm frustrated by this. you talk, they're listening, but they're just waiting to jump in, right? You can feel it. They're not trying to understand you really, right? They're just waiting, and then as fast as possible, they jump in and they start arguing, or they jump in with their opinion, or they jump in with their story. Now, this is, I will tell you from experience, this is the one difficulty, the one frustration of this technique, maybe a weak point of this technique, I would say, is that if you use this technique too much, you can become frustrated. Okay, and I'm saying this because this happens to me a lot. Okay, this is a big habit for me. I use this technique all the time. But because I use it, what happens is that sometimes, many times, I will get frustrated because I will feel I am listening all the time and I'm not speaking enough. Like, I also want to talk sometimes, right? I also need to share my feelings. I also need to share my ideas sometimes. So that is a weak point, to be careful not to use this too much. There is a time when you need to talk. There's a time when you need to just stop listening and interrupt if necessary, right? Because some people, I'll tell you, again, especially Americans. Americans are terrible about this. They will talk and talk and talk. They will talk forever. They will endlessly talk and never, ever, ever listen. Okay, there are some very bad listeners in the world, okay? And sometimes they will be your friends or family or people you work with. This is just life. And so I also, another thing, I had to learn this myself, is sometimes you have to just be forceful and talk. Okay, it's okay. That's why I said, this week, practice it all the time. But later, you have to decide. Sometimes you decide not to use this technique. That's also okay. Sometimes you feel, no, I need to talk now. I'll give you an example from my own life. Okay. I'll just be general about it. For example, let's say I talk to someone in my family. Usually when I talk to them, I mostly listen. Right? They talk. I listen. Usually, it's okay. Usually, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me that much. However, sometimes there's something in my life that is, I have a problem. So, for example, recently I was sick physically. I had kind of a physical problem, right? And just really feeling bad. And I wanted to talk about it, right? Because I just want to, kind of talk about this. I was sick. I had a really bad week. So, I call and I'm talking to my family member and they start talking as usual, not listening too much. Well, at this time I realized, you know what? No, they're not having a problem. They're not talking about anything important. And I have something I want to say. So I interrupted them and I said, yeah, well, actually, I've had a bad week and I was really sick. And I just started talking myself because in that situation, I felt I needed to share, my problem. They had nothing important to say. So it's like, no, it's my time to talk this time. So yes, that is important too. Okay. This is a great technique, but also, again, it's that hard and soft, right? There are times when you have to be forceful. Some people you need to be forceful with when you're talking to them. And just some situations, sometimes you need to talk. So that's okay. That's also okay. Just not all the time, right? In a good relationship, you do both. All right. But it's a good, so Rafiko, thank you for sharing that because you're right. Excellent. Okay, here's a big one. All right. From Lisa. The right communication is the most important habit for me. I completely agree with that. Before we can offer advice or suggest solutions, we must understand the other person's needs. And for a deep understanding, we have to listen. Not only to hear what they say, but listen. Listen with deep attention. Listen empathically, right? Again, emotionally. This is exactly what my work is about in natural medicine. Yes. A quote: "The greatest mistake we humans make in our relationships, we listen half, understand a quarter, think zero, and react double." Yes. And interesting that Lisa mentioned health. Because, again, I just mentioned I was sick this week. And this was very frustrating to me, because exactly a good doctor, a true doctor, or I would just say healer. So and I think natural health people, in my experience, natural health, natural medicine, natural health people are better at this. They're better than medical doctors. A lot of medical doctors are terrible about this. Really terrible. Very frustrating. It's one reason I don't like normal medicine very much. I hate going to doctors. There are some good ones. I have met some very good ones, but there are a lot of really terrible ones. And this is the big thing. Their ego's so big, they don't listen. They start giving advice before they understand anything. So I was having this kind of health problem this week, and they're just start talking and giving their ideas. They don't really understand. One of the doctors. I went to a different doctor who was much better. But one doctor I went to, he just kind of lazy, did not listen, just immediately started giving advice and wanting to tell me, give me some medicine. But I knew he had no idea what was happening. He had no idea really, because he did not listen. So you have to diagnose, you have to understand and listen first. Then you can solve the problem or give medicine or give information or advice. So important. So Lisa, very good point. And, in medicine or healing, super important. This is the one thing, if I had to give advice to doctors, medical doctors, I would say, shut up. Okay? Shut up and listen and ask more questions. And learn this technique. I think it would actually save them money. I think they would be more effective. They would have better treatments if they would just learn to listen. Most of them in the hard medical field, they're such terrible listeners. And if they're doctors out there, I'm sorry, but you probably know this too, right? The good ones are good listeners. Here's a good idea. Here's a good one about sales now. So moving into a different area. In the sales world, there's a thought that you're supposed to talk as much as you can. Yeah, and it's a bad thought. In order to give an impressive speech and get more chances to sell. Is this the wrong stuff? Yeah, it's not good sales. I mean, it can work some, but this method is better. I know. Okay, I have a whole business that depends on sales. And I have done sales face-to-face, and I've done sales, video. I've done sales on internet. I've done sales with audio. So I know this topic very well, and I promise you, if you're selling in video or something, or you're selling on a stage to a big group, right, you can't ask questions to them at that moment. But you have to do it before you speak. You must completely and totally understand that audience. So, for example, I've done, some big seminars, and at the seminars, I'll sell my lessons, right? So I give a sales speech at the end. This is normal. A lot of people do this. Well, in the middle of a speech, I can't have a conversation with, one person because I have 2,000 or 3,000 people there. But so when do I do this listening? I do it before. I do it every day. I do it right now as I read your comments and questions. Before the event, I talk to people constantly. I ask them questions. I listen to them. What are your problems with English? What are your problems with lessons you've used in the past? What other methods have you used? And I listen, and I listen to their emotions about it. And I understand your problems. I understand your frustration. And of course, now I understand. I've been doing this for many years. So I very, very, very much understand. And I still listen, even after doing this, what am I, 12 years, more than that. I still constantly listening to students. So when I give a speech, a sales presentation on the stage, I have done this for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I do not just stand up and start saying, buy my lessons. You must buy my lessons because I'm great. That's bad sales. Now, Kandora here, yes, you're correct. Bad salespeople, in fact, do this. You're right. There's a lot of bad salespeople who just talk. And right? You've been a customer with these people. They're annoying, right? Those are the salespeople you hate, right? Let's say you go to buy a car, and then the guy just starts blah, 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 and he's using all these sales techniques. You know their techniques, right? All these little techniques trying to kind of pressure, right? It's a kind of pressure sales, trying to pressure you to buy. How do you feel in that situation? If he or she, if they don't listen, if they don't really understand you, if they just start talking and pressing you and sell, how do you feel? Well, I know I feel no trust. I don't trust them. Like immediately I'm annoyed with them. I want them to shut up and leave me alone, right? And I don't trust them. I am not going to buy from them. Now, sometimes they do get a sale that way with that pressure, right? Some people are a little, maybe a little more weak or tired, or, sometimes it works because maybe the person's tired or they're weak or whatever. And yeah, that technique, it works some, but it's less effective. It's much less effective. I promise you, it does not work very well. It's a bad sales technique, and it's super annoying, right? So I've had this, or sometimes you walk into a store. I always hate it. You walk into a store, and then they walk over to you, and they start saying, oh, what are you looking for? Well, let me tell you about this. And they start trying to sell something to you, and I'm just like, go away. I don't want that. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't ask to hear about this. I don't care about this product. Right? I just immediately don't trust them. I immediately am annoyed by them. And not just me. I think probably you also have this experience, right? Or telemarketing. They call you on the phone and they start bothering you, try to sell you something. Everybody hates them. Okay? So in general, for sales, it's a bad technique if they hate you. If a big percent of the people are annoyed or they hate you or they want you to go away, that's a bad sales technique, okay? So, yeah, I disagree. It's a bad sales technique. This is better. This works much better, what we're learning today, for sure. Do you have online classes one by one? Nope. All my classes are recorded. Get my VIP lessons. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. There's some sales right there for you. All right. No, okay. Good question from Nasser. Do I repeat what others are saying in my head, just silently? Or do I say it out loudly? Because if I say it out loud, maybe they think I'm crazy or stupid. No. You say it out loud. You say it to them specifically. This is the technique part. This is why you have to practice. Because, yes, in the beginning, it might sound unnatural, right? They say, again, I'll use the same example. Oh, man, I was at work 12 hours today. Okay, so the technique, you say out loud to them, you look at them and you say, oh man, you were at work long time. You must be tired. Now, if you say it like that, how I just said it, that's natural. It sounds fine. They will not think you're crazy. They will not think you're stupid. But, I'm used to doing this, so I can do it quite naturally. You need a little practice, so it just sounds natural. They won't notice. I promise you, they won't notice. However, what Nasser's saying, in the beginning, maybe you're not natural, right? You're practicing it. So you say, you pause too long and you say, so you were busy. You worked 12 hours and you must be tired. Now, can you see just the sound of my voice, the hesitation, the slowness, I don't have eye contact. I'm kind of looking up. It sounds unnatural. It's saying basically the same thing, but the body language and the voice sounds unnatural. So with that, yes, then maybe they look at you, they think you're strange. They think, yeah, I just said that. Why are you saying it to me again? Right? It's how you do it. It's how you do it. That's why you have to practice. It's how you do it. So yes, you must say it out loud. You must say it to them, in fact. They must hear you say this. If you don't say it, then they don't know that you understand. They don't know you're listening. They don't know you have empathy. You have to say it out loud directly to them. Yes, good question. Very good question. Very important. So, the other part of this question is, how do you do it naturally so it doesn't sound strange? You have to practice. I'm sorry, but like everything in life, in the beginning, it will probably sound strange. In the beginning, yes, it might be weird. In the beginning, you probably will not be good at it. That's life. That's how you learn. So practice. And that's why I said, if you use the technique in the beginning, you're practicing, and they say, what? Why are you repeating everything I say? Just be honest with them, okay? You don't have to hide it. Just be honest, okay? And then just say, honestly, I'm trying to improve my listening. I realize my listening's not very good. So, this is kind of a technique to help me be a better listener. When I repeat back to you what you're saying and back what you're feeling, it just helps me focus so that I'm really listening to you and trying to understand you. So I'm not just trying to think of something else to say or getting distracted. That's a very honest answer. And, most people will appreciate that. Oh, okay. Marcelino says, AJ, I listened to your advice since 4 years, almost 4 years. And all the improvements I've got, I have to be thankful for you. Well, thank you. I always like when you guys share your successes. Thank you so much. Need some water. Mouth's getting dry. Fernanda says, when people feel you care about their feelings and emotions, they really trust you and listen to you. That is exactly right, Fernanda. Yes. The emotion is more important than the information, honestly. I mean, it's more important when you're speaking for persuasion, and it's also more important for the listening. It's more important that you say to them their feelings, even if you're wrong. It's more important that you try to communicate and understand their feelings than the information in most situations. Now, again, if it's a science, you're at work and it's some engineering problem, then of course not. It's not about emotions, right? But I'm talking about most kind of relationships. Okay, Ankit has a question about English. I'm listening 3 to 4, hours in a day, but my English is not improving. What will you suggest? Well, Ankit, I need to know how many months you've been doing this. 1 week or 6 months or 1 year. It really depends. If it's just a month, keep going. Just continue doing what you're doing. If it's been 6 months and no improvement, then probably you're listening to things that are too difficult. So I would suggest easier things. The other thing I would suggest, if you're listening 6 months and not much improvement, is you need more repetition. So it's not just the time, it's the repetition. So repeat the same audios many, many, many times. All right, so again, easier audios probably, and repeat them more. But if it's just been a short time, like a few weeks or even 1 or 2 months, just relax because it takes more. You need more time. All right, another sales question. I should do a training, sales training. Actually, I like sales. I when I was young, I hated it, didn't like it, and now I love it. Okay, Kate Kiao Tu. Sorry about the bad pronunciation. I would like to put some question, AJ. As a salesman, what is more important if dealing with negative people? Negative people. So I'm guessing you're talking about prospects, potential customers who are negative. It depends a lot on how you're selling. You know, are you doing one-to-one? Are you selling online? Are you selling with video? Are you selling with presentations and stage? All of those things. My opinion is this, generally. For really negative people, like people who already in their mind, they don't like you or they're suspicious of your products, I don't waste my time with them. I consider them, I think of them as bad prospects, right? They're not good potential people. I don't try to convince people who already don't like my method. It's a waste of time because there's so many other people out in the world who are open. So I focus on, I think number one, salespeople call this prospecting. That means finding good potential customers. That's the very important first step of sales. So you're not wasting your time, right? Like, for example, I mean, this is a stupid example. It's obvious, but it's just exaggerated example. Let's say you sell, I don't know, Ferraris, right? You sell Ferraris. And a poor college student comes into your office, right? So you talk to him. Hey, how's it going? Oh, I want to get a Ferrari. Okay, well, right. Yeah, but, I don't have any money. I'm just a poor student. My family's really poor. I mean, okay, when they tell you that, do you continue trying to sell to them? Of course not, right? I mean, that's obvious, but it would be stupid. You'd be wasting your time. They cannot afford it. They can't buy a Ferrari. There's no way. Now, don't be rude to them. It doesn't mean they're a bad person or something, but as a salesperson, you'd be wasting your time trying to sell to someone like that. Okay, so you would just say, look, you're a nice guy, but the truth is, Ferraris cost, I don't know, what do they cost? $40,000. So there's just no way you can get this unless you have a rich family member to give you money, or you win the lottery, or you make a lot more money. Right now, there's just no way you can buy one. But, I'll give you information. I hope someday you become rich, and please come back when you become rich. Well, that'd be a nice way to not waste your time, but still be nice to them. And who knows, maybe that young student 5 years later is a billionaire. All right. So but you don't waste too much time on the people who are really negative. That's my personal philosophy. I don't waste time on them. There are techniques. Of course, there are sales techniques where you try to change that. But for me, I think it's a lot of energy for very little benefit. Okay, we have 10 from Myanmar. Please come introduce effortless English to Myanmar. We in Myanmar, Myanmar need a great teaching method here. I would love to. This is why I always say Burma, because Myanmar, if you say it many times, it's a little hard to pronounce. Burma is easier to pronounce. I would love to come to Burma, Myanmar. It's actually, I've never been there. I would very much like to visit, especially it's a Buddhist country, which interests me. So someday, I will. I'll promise you I'll visit Myanmar someday. Okay, now Maxim has a good point. I think the biggest problem of communication is not the ability to hear other people. The technique of repetition of opinion may help. When you repeat what the other one said, you become in his place. And the other person has the opportunity to hear his own thoughts. Yes. Sometimes we speak, but we do not hear ourselves. All of that is correct. That's right. This is a technique that has two benefits, as Maxim's kind of saying. Benefit number one is for you. What is the benefit of repeating what they say and repeating their emotion, or at least guessing their emotion? Well, the benefit to you is it's kind of a mental technique. It forces you to notice. Right? If you're trying to use this technique, you don't let yourself think about other stuff. You don't look around. You don't try to think of what you're going to say next. And actually, this technique forces you to listen better. It forces you to notice their eyes, their face. Why? Because you want to figure out their emotion. Just by guessing their emotion, it forces you to notice more. So that's why it makes you a better listener. If you just use this like a robot, oh yeah, so you're busy and oh, you must feel tired, then it's no good, right? No, you use it because it changes your focus. That's why it's beneficial and helpful to you. And also, as Maxim said, the benefit is to the other person. Number one, they feel more trust with you because you're really trying to understand them. So more trust. And number two, this is kind of part of human communication. When they hear their own information come back, it kind of helps them. Yeah. It helps them understand their own feelings and thoughts. Sometimes when we're speaking, we're not clear about how we feel. We're not clear what we think, really. And just the action of talking helps us to become more clear. Again, this is why counselors do this, right? When I was a counselor, it's another reason I would use this technique. Most counselors do. Because just by talking and hearing their own thoughts come back, right? You are summarizing. The other person, yeah. Right? This is why when you say, so you're frustrated, sounds like you're frustrated, sometimes the other person will stop for a minute. They'll think, no, not really frustrated. Actually, I'm more sad. Right? It actually helps them think about their own feelings more, and they understand themselves more. So they communicate more clearly. You're helping them be more clear. This also helps understanding. So all these things are very good and correct and well said, Maxim. Okay, good point. Destin says, sometimes I do this technique naturally. I use some reactions and emotions. It's very useful. People think you feel them and you really listen to them. Yes. But sometimes I can't focus on conversations when I'm in a bad mood, and that's okay. Exactly. It's hard to do it all the time. It's very difficult to do it all the time because it requires energy. And again, sometimes you are feeling bad. Sometimes your emotion's so strong that you have to get it out. That's okay, right? It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do it 100%. It's just a useful technique, right? It's useful. So it's a tool, another tool we have, and you use it when it's useful. Aaron says, thank you for your lesson. I always listen to you, Mr. AJ. My aim is just speaking lots and lots. I hope you visit Indonesia. Again, I've already been to Indonesia a few times, but I do hope to go back. It's a nice place. Nasser's inviting me to Algeria. All right, add it to my list. All right, I think we're getting to the end. I'm getting hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet, and it's getting late. Okay, Carol. Carol, hello. When you're very empathic, people can feel it, yes. And even people you're not close to tend to talk to you about their problems and pains. Yes, they do. My question is how not to get involved because it can become very heavy to carry sometimes. Right. I know exactly 100% what you're talking about. Sometimes when you become very good at this, some people are naturally good at this, some people practice. I practiced it, but sometimes it becomes too much. That Carol's right about that. Sometimes you don't want to hear you're like, oh, I don't want to hear people's problems anymore. People do this as a job. This is a big problem. They get it can make you feel heavy because everyone's telling you everything all the time and you're never talking or not enough. So that's why, Carol, I had to learn this myself. I still have to practice this myself. I'm very empathic, but you have to balance it. Again, it's that soft, hard thing, right? So when you start to feel heavy, sometimes you have to just cut people off. Sometimes you don't have to listen, okay? You don't have to, especially when it's not someone really close to you, especially when their problem is not really that important. If someone has a really terrible tragedy or some super sad problem in life, yeah, you want to listen and help them, right? But if it's just they're just complaining about normal everyday stuff and you're tired, you don't want to listen, you don't have to. Interrupt them, okay? Change the topic. Start talking about something yourself. All those things are fine. They're okay. In fact, they're good and they're healthy and they're useful. And again, I have to do this myself. Like I said, I have some people in my life who talk. And usually I don't mind, but sometimes I do mind. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I want to talk, and I have to remind myself, okay, you know what? I don't have to just listen the whole time, and I will speak up. And that's what I need to do, and that's what you need to do. So if it starts to feel too heavy, then you need to talk, or you need to get away, or you need to change the topic, or whatever. That's totally fine. So again, you don't have to do it all the time. And another one from Carol, a follow-up. We're living in a world of communication, technology, yet it's astonishing, which means amazing, good word, to see how bad our communication skills are. Yeah, most people, really pretty bad. Most people don't take time to listen to other people. They think they know everything. This resulting in the feeling of incomprehension, not understanding, and loneliness that you've been talking about in your podcast. Yeah, that's a big one, right? That is a big source of the loneliness. In my earlier audio podcast this last week and recently, I talked about loneliness, and I talked about, we're losing connections with family and community and our people, all of that. True. That's kind of on the character side, really the deep issues. But also, even with our family, even with our friends, even with our community, this problem Carol's talking about, so many people don't listen. So you have your friends or you have your community, but you still feel lonely because you feel they never listen to me. They never listen to me. And without the listening, you feel lonely. You feel like there's not a real connection. And that listening has to be on both sides. So, if that happens, yeah, sometimes you do, maybe you listen to them and eventually you have to say, you can just, if you have a good relationship, if it's close, you say, I feel like you're not listening to me. I feel like I always listen to you, but you don't listen to me. And maybe you have to be just kind of direct about that with people sometimes. It is difficult. It is true. It is a source of loneliness for a lot of people. You have to feel that you are listened to, understood. We all need it. We all need this at some level. All right, I'm going to get down to the end here. People have been saying it. All right. One more. Last comment. Who gets the last one? Okay, let's see what we got. Who gets the last comment? Okay, now here's a good, interesting question. Very interesting. I'm just going to say Olga. It's hard to express emotions through communication over VoIP internet, voice over internet. In other words, like Skype, right? And really, this is true for, I would say, phone, without visual, right? It's more difficult to express emotions. That is true. I work remotely and distance makes communication not easy. Yeah. How can I improve emotions in such speech? Okay, so it is more difficult, the emotional part. Why? Because you can't see them. It's more difficult. Or even if it's a video, sometimes it's just like their face really close. But still, video's better. If you can do video, like if you have a job and you need to talk to people on your team, try video, because video helps with emotion, right? Because a lot of emotion, how do you know emotion? It's nonverbal mostly. Most people will not say, I am angry. Sometimes it happens, but usually they don't, right? They show you, I can't believe this, right? How do you know they're angry? You can see it in their face, you see the way they move, and you hear it in their voice. Right? It's all nonverbal, right? It's not the words. So, if you can't see them, take away video, you take away your eyes. So now it becomes more difficult. Now you've got to listen to the voice. So if it's all audio that you're doing, I understand, Olga, maybe you're doing customer service or something and it's only audio. Well, it is more difficult, for sure, definitely more difficult. So now you have to become an even better listener, and you have to listen to their tone, right? The voice emotion. You have to become very good at hearing the emotion in their voices. Now, if it's strong emotion, it's obvious, it's easy, right? If they say, I'm calling about this product, right? Okay, you can kind of hear they're angry. But sometimes it's small. I'm calling about this product, and there's a little anger or something there, but you're not sure. So this is why you can just guess. You can just guess. You don't have to be right. This is the good news about the emotional communication. Just guess and ask them. You can even ask a question, right? So you don't say you are angry if you're not sure. Just say, it sounds like you are angry. Sounds like you are upset. Sounds like you are frustrated. Sounds like you are whatever. Right? It sounds like you are. And then just say an emotion. It's okay if you're wrong. For example, maybe they're not angry, but say, sounds like you're angry. Okay, your computer's not working. It sounds like you're angry. They might say, no, I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated. Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, so you're frustrated. And then you might ask a question, tell me more about the computer. What's happening with the computer? Well, it won't start. I pushed the start button and it won't start. Okay, that must be frustrating. You can use different words, right? Don't just say it like a robot. That must be difficult. That must be frustrating. And then, of course, do your job. I don't know what to say in that situation, but you start asking questions, the technical questions. So with emotional communication, especially if you don't know, it's okay. You don't have to read their mind. Okay, that's the part. You can guess wrong. It's okay. They will tell you. That's why you have to say it out loud. That's why you can't just think it. If you just think, you might be wrong. You might think they're angry and they're not angry. You might think they're sad. They're not sad. So you have to check. That's why you're saying it back to them. You're checking. This is a way to check, right? Remember the goal. The goal is to understand them, really understand them deeply, perfectly. To do that, you have to say it back to them. You're checking. This is you're confirming, right? That's why you're saying the information back. Be sure it's real. They do this in the military. I've never been in the military, but watch those shows like there's a submarine, right? They're a ship. They're in a ship, right? And the captain says, turn to starboard. That means turn right. Turn to starboard 30 degrees. He gives an order. The captain gives an order. What does the guy who's actually doing, driving the boat, steering the boat, the pilot, I guess it's called. What does the pilot do? Does the pilot just turn immediately? Actually, no. Watch those movies. The pilot always repeats the order back. The pilot always says the same thing back to the captain. He'll say, he'll like, yes, captain, turn to the right, 30 degrees. Then he does it. He says it back. He repeats it. then he does it. Why? Why do they do this in the military? Because he's checking. What if he heard wrong? If he just does it, maybe he did not understand. Maybe he heard wrong, and then he'll do the wrong thing. And of course, in the military, that might kill people. So he always checks the order. He says it to the captain. He says, "Yes, Captain, turn right 20 degrees. And if he's wrong, the captain says, no, not 20 degrees. Turn right 30 degrees. And then he says back again, turn right 30 degrees. Yes, Captain. And the captain will then confirm or just stay silent, right? So on the ship, they always repeat the order back. They say it back again. Why? To check, to be 100% sure, to understand perfectly, because it's a dangerous situation. They can't make a mistake. In stressful situations, they might hear wrong. Maybe it's loud. Maybe there's stress. So they always repeat it back again. This is the same technique. It's just emotional. So it's the same thing. That's why you're repeating back. I see you're really angry because I was late. You're checking back with them. And then they confirm or not. They say, yeah, that's right. Or maybe they say, no, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed, or I'm just whatever. Right? It's just like that military situation. You're checking to make sure your understanding is good. Okay, guys, I have to eat. I am hungry. Dinner time for me. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I did. As always, thank you to everyone who joined live. Love our live shows. Always love your questions. Always love your comments. Always love your insights, right? Your ideas. Really great. Thank you so much. Kind of enjoyed today talking about sales and relationships and all these different situations. Really good. All right. And of course, join me on the audio podcast. I'll do another audio podcast this week, a few probably. And we'll be back next week with the next habit. Habit number 6 is the next one. Remember, this week, practice this technique. Practice it with every single conversation you have. Just this week. Practice, and then it will become more natural. And as always here, I'll give you a little sales thing right now. Speak English fluently. Speak English powerfully. Speak English confidently. Think in English. Speak English effortlessly when you join my VIP program. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com. Commit. You've got to commit to my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Go there now. Join, commit, VIP program. Speak powerfully. effortlessenglishclub.com.